I think we really forget or underestimate the power of the tongue. And the Bible is very, very clear on this, and which is why Jesus made what seems like an extremely shocking statement. He actually said that we will all be judged for every careless word that we've ever spoken. That's a pretty high standard. And I don't mean that in order to bring condemnation, and I don't think that's what he was trying to say. His point in that was that, listen, our tongue was given to us for a very important reason. There's a reason why you have a mouth, and there's a reason why you have a tongue. And it's to be able to communicate. And there's something extraordinarily powerful that happens when we speak. All right? It is amazing. I mean, literally wars have been started over just what people say and speak. It's so powerful. Ideologies, the way in which we share ideas can really change so much. And the way in which we speak one to another has such a huge impact. I can't tell you how many times I have ministered with adults who are still living out some of the negative aspects of something someone said to them that was negative when they were a child. I had a friend whose father told him he'd wanted to be a lawyer, and his father said something to the effect of, you know, you would be a terrible lawyer, you couldn't do that, you would just fail at it or whatever. And it literally changed the course of his life. Just saying that one thing. And so I say that just to say there really is power in our words, and God gave us a tongue in order to be able to say things that bring life. And literally your words can bring life to someone.
You need to sit, your head's cut off.
The headless preacher. Or your words can produce the opposite effect. And so James, the Apostle James, actually said, the man who knows how to control his tongue is one of the most powerful persons, because the tongue is actually the hardest thing in the world to control, is our tongue and what comes out of our mouth. And so I really want to just encourage you. The best thing you can do is learn how to speak really positive words of affirmation. I'm not talking about like flattery. I'm talking about, you know, seeing the positive things in other people and actually putting that to words and speaking it to them. It's funny, we joke about this all the time, you know, oftentimes ladies, for example, really, there's something about hearing I love you. It never gets old. And sometimes guys are not always great at actually communicating that. You know, the joke oftentimes is, listen, you know, I said I loved you when I married you, and if anything changes, I'll let you know. You know, it's like, but I'm still here, right? It's a joke.
We're not laughing.
No, I know. But it's amazing how something even like that, just saying those words, I love you. I mean, you know, if I go more than a day or two without saying something like that, she'll actually point it out to me.
You didn't tell me you love me today. Not
in a bad way. I mean, just you know. But what I'm saying is, even something as simple as that is so powerful. So part of one of just the practical things that will really help your relationship is if you learn to really say things. I know that words of affirmation are sort of can be a love language as well, but they actually are for everybody, in the sense that everybody needs, words matter, is what I'm saying. And what you say matters. And, even though we do have to have difficult conversations, or you may, like even with kids, sometimes you have to bring a little bit of correction or something with kids, so for those who have kids or will have kids. I always encourage parents, you want to make sure that your ratio of positive to what I would call negative in the sense of correction is at least 10 to 1. At least a minimum, maybe even 20 to 1. It is amazing how, just one negative thing can derail someone. You could say 10 positive things and one negative thing, and then remember the one negative thing. That's that kind of an impact on us. And so it's really important, especially for our spouses, that our words are words that bring life and never bring death, never bring. So, anyways, now as far as communication goes, okay, you guys have already heard it, but you're going to hear it again because it's so good. I can't stand, can I?
No.
I feel like I need to.
Well, if we can't, if they got to sit.
You guys can stand if you want to. All right, so communication is key. I would say the skill that is most important and most lacking when it comes to communication is listening. May sound like a strange thing to say, but my experience has been, and I have a lot of it, is that most people don't really know what listening is and don't do it very well. And everybody's guilty of it, not just some. So don't look at your spouse in the eyes, all right? Because we all do it. The best way I know to kind of describe listening, and I like to call it the 3 levels of listening. And most people are at level 1, which is the lowest. And I want to encourage you to get to level 3, which is the best. Now, level 1 listening, I describe it this way. It's reactive or responsive listening. Here is how you know that you're doing it. If you are either in your mind or actually with your mouth, you are formulating a response to what the person is saying, you are doing level 1 listening, which most of us, I would say 90% of the time, that's where we're at. And you can tell, so again, the real key that you know that you're doing this is if you're thinking about what you're going to say in response to what the person is saying.
An emotional reaction.
Right? You all know what I'm talking about when I say that? Okay. That's where most of us are when we listen. We're at that level 1 responsive reactive listening. Now, here's the deal. You cannot really multitask. Multitasking is a myth. Now, yes, some people are very good at shifting between multiple tasks, but you can't actually do 2 things at the same time, all right? Which means if you are formulating a response, you cannot be listening. You can't do it. You think you're doing it, you're not doing it. I'm just telling you straight out, you're not doing it. You're not hearing. So that's where most people are. It's not a very good. If you can just learn to catch yourself, you'll go a long way. The level 2 is an improvement. Level 2, I call it listening to the words that the person is saying. So this is better. At least you're starting to do some listening because you're not responding. You're not reacting to what they're saying. You're trying to hear. But if you're only listening to their words, you're still not quite listening because most people actually have a hard time putting into words what they're trying to communicate. And words sometimes mean different things to different people. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you say something and somebody completely misinterprets what you said. And oftentimes it's just because, again, words are not the best. They're not perfect. I oftentimes have a hard time trying to put into words what I want to communicate. I try, and it's like, I'm not quite what I meant, but it's the best I can say. Or sometimes words mean different things. So you still aren't really listening if all you do is hear what the person says. So level 3 listening, and this takes a lot of practice, it really does. I call it listening to the heart. And so when you're listening to the heart, what you're trying to do is I want to really understand what it is that this person wants to communicate. So you're going beyond just the words that they're saying. You're trying to get down to their heart. You want to be able to basically hear what is in their heart. And it takes a lot of practice to do this. And one of the best techniques you can learn in terms of this kind of listening is how to ask questions. The reason why I say that is because rather than make the assumption that you know what the person is trying to say, oftentimes you need to kind of ask them, like, what did you mean when you said this? Like why did that make you feel this way? The way you know, the simple test to know that you've actually heard the other person is that you can say back to them in your own words what you heard, and if they can go, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, then you've actually heard them. And most of the time, it's funny, and and I'm happy to work with anybody here if you want to learn on this. But when I have couples come in sometimes and they want a little bit of help and whatever, and they'll practice doing this, and when they say, "Okay, I heard you say this," almost inevitably the other person's like, "No, that's not what I'm trying to say." It is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really good practice, especially if you're like in disagreement, when you're having those conversations or there's something's not good or you're having the intense fellowship, being able to say back, okay, is this what you're trying to say? Until the person says yes. If they say, no, that's not, then you need to ask some questions. Okay, where did I get it wrong? Tell me again, what did you mean by this? I remember we had an issue one time in our marriage, and she was like, I don't feel like you're sticking up for me. And I had the hardest time trying to figure out what she was talking about. And when I heard that, I kept thinking she wanted me to get into fights. Like why do I have to beat someone up? And it took me I had to ask a lot of questions, and I was like, okay, can you give me some examples? It wasn't a single conversation, it took quite a few conversations, and me asking a lot of questions and saying, okay, help me to understand, what did you mean by this? Why does that make you feel that way? Can you give me an example of when I did that? And eventually it got to the point where I kind of figured out what she was talking about. And so it's just important, and I always encourage, especially when you're having a difference, or there's someone's feeling like, okay, I'm feeling hurt, I need to share something with you or talk to you about something or whatever. You want to really learn to, before you try to resolve anything, you first take the time to listen. And it's important that both people have the opportunity to share, and as they share, the other person all they're going to do is listen, which means you can't react, which means you can't try to respond to what they're saying. It means you don't defend yourself. This is a hard one, because if she's trying to share with me, like there's something I'm doing that's really bothering her, or there's something she wishes I would do that would really, our natural reaction when somebody is basically bringing a constructive criticism.
You want to defend yourself.
We want to defend ourselves. That is the normal, natural reaction that we have. And you got to learn how to suspend that. Where this is not about me, and not about me trying to react, respond, defend, or anything, or correct. That's another thing. Yeah. Oftentimes when someone is sharing, if we feel like they're wrong in what they're saying, or they shouldn't feel that way, we immediately want to begin to correct the person and say, you shouldn't feel that way, or that's wrong, or that's not true, I didn't do that. That's all of that needs to be suspended in the listening phase. And I would say, at least probably 60% of all issues can be resolved if both people feel that they've been heard. Most of the time, the frustration comes because they don't feel like you're being heard, like you're actually not listening to me. And oftentimes, if we can get to that phase, there's not much to resolve after it. But if there is things to resolve after listening, you're in a better position to be able to talk it through if you learn how to listen. Does that make sense? You need to understand first before you react to someone. Most of the time you're reacting to something and you haven't even understood what the person is trying to say. And communication does this. And all you do is escalate. And then both people leave the conversation feeling frustrated rather than feeling like something got resolved. I cannot tell you how many issues in a marriage come down to the fact that two people are doing this in their communication. And they can't even have a fruitful conversation. And you'll never have a fruitful conversation if you don't even learn to do something as simple as listening. Does it sound fairly simple what I'm saying?
It sounds simple.
Is the concept relatively simple to understand? Yeah. It's not easy to put into practice.
No, it isn't when the emotions start to come in. That's the hardest part for me. Because my problem for it was that when you're sharing and I'm reacting and I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to react. But the thing is, I have this thought, but if I don't say this, I'll forget it for later. So I want to jump in so I don't forget it. But either write it down or just understand that, you know what, after this gets resolved, I might not even need to say what it was because that's actually gone. But so the hardest part is actually keeping the emotions come in and they can really overtake. That's the hardest part, is when you said in the beginning is that I'm sovereign. I actually have control over my emotions. For the longest time, my emotions actually had control over me. And it took a long time to practice, learning that, no, I actually do have control over my emotions. I don't have to be angry. I can actually just sit and listen and really just talk this out, and it really is okay. So that was the hardest part, was just working with the emotion, but the hardest part with the communications, I'm always thinking, well, I'm going to forget my argument, and then you're going to win, and it's like, but it wasn't about winning, it was about hearing.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that every conversation you have, and now we're talking about the conversations, not just a fun conversation. We're talking about conversations where we have to make decisions, whether it's conflict or something, something has to be more like resolved. And those are, and every marriage should have those conversations, all right? You should come away from every conversation, it should be good, it should be fruitful. You should feel like whatever you were having is really, at least if it's not resolved, you've got kind of a good step towards resolving it. If that's not happening, you're not having a fruitful, good conversation, a healthy conversation. And you should get help. No, I mean that seriously. If I can encourage you in anything, like if you ever feel like you're getting stuck or not making progress, talk to somebody. I'll tell you right now, we have talked to a lot of people.
Yes, we have.
We have good friends that we trust, and when we've had our own issues where we couldn't seem to make breakthrough, or we were just getting stagnant or whatever, we would have a conversation, say, can you give us a help? Or we're not having a fruitful conversation here, we're not getting anywhere. It's amazing what happens when you get a third party in the room.
Yep.
Just to help you go through that process. So that's it on communication. That's my one gift to you. Learn how to listen. Listen to the heart. I don't oftentimes say stuff like this, but I guarantee you, if you get good at it, it will utterly transform all of your relationships.
All of them, yeah.
Yep. So that's all I've got for you guys. Is there anything, any questions? Anything you guys were hoping to cover that we didn't talk about? No?
You gonna go over finance as well?
I wasn't planning to. No, I think everybody's probably. So, all right.
Nobody questions? No questions?
You're all good. All right. Can we pray for you guys?